Welcome to episode 12 of Natural AF Podcast. I'm your host, Isaac.
And I'm Alexa.
And in this episode, I interview Yerasimos from a year ago. So it's like you're stepping into a time machine. I recorded this episode last August, and life just got so busy that I couldn't find time to upload it. I know that's an excuse, but...
Well, it was actually a blessing in disguise, I feel, because, once it, so much time had passed that Isaac was kind of like, I don't know what to do with these episodes I've got recorded. And, we kind of wanted to do something like this. So we were like, let's just relaunch the podcast together. So it's been aging like a fine wine. And
Absolutely.
The interview might have been recorded a year ago, but the conversation is timeless, I feel. It's a really, really great conversation. I just listened to the episode for the first time as well, and I really, really enjoyed it. We love Yerasimos. Obviously, he's a big part of the reason that we met. Yep. And we just love that the work that he does. And, Isaac will go into his personal experience working with Yerasimos and some of the things that they did together. And they kind of delve into this concept of the body being the shadow, which can be a bit of a foreign concept to some. Even I know when I was first introduced to that idea, I didn't really get it. But Yerasimos does a really great job of explaining that. And also going into some other related topics like the nervous system, and they touch on somatic experiencing. So for anyone that is kind of new to these topics, this is a really great episode to listen to, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate to it.
Yeah, and if you speak Californian, you'll understand this episode perfectly because we really bro out.
Bro
out, dude.
Bro sesh. Oh my goodness.
Can't wait for you guys to hear this episode, but before we get right into it, I just want to take a moment and say thank you to everyone who's been buying our product. We've had such a great reception here in Australia. And we also want to announce for the first time, I hinted at this at our Instagram for Natural Art Form, but our product is now picked up by the Misty Mountain Retreat, which is owned by the one and only venerable Barbara O'Neill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so grateful. It was our first wholesale order, which is amazing. Yeah,
like we started this business. We restarted it or just started it again here just in the last year, and this was our first wholesale order, and so we're so grateful to them, and we are getting some very good reports back from customers. One of our amazing customers, one of the amazing customers from Misty Mountain, reached out to us on Instagram and left us an amazing review, and we asked for permission to share it with you, so Alexa will go ahead and read that.
So she wrote to us, I am a yoga teacher and studio owner in Melbourne and have been suffering with a lot of hip and knee pain, to the point that after getting up after sitting, I'm in so much pain, and when I'm sleeping, I wake when I have to straighten my leg from the pain. I've used so many products and modalities, but nothing has helped until I used your cream. It is literally a miracle in a jar. I am just so incredibly grateful for this incredible cream.
I've heard so many other testimonials, and I'm just grateful to have provided something that works. And I continue to obsess on tweaking and making it as perfect as we possibly can, and Alexa's doing such an amazing job keeping everything organized.
And the feedback we get is honestly, like for me personally anyway, it's so rewarding. I'm really not driven by money. I love helping people, and when we do markets on the weekend, and we're now at the point where people are, that have bought or like have heard about us, or like, friends that have given them the product and they've tried it, like they're always coming up to us at the market and saying, this is such an amazing product. We love it so much, and they really, and that's why they part of the reason that they want to support the business. We do everything as ethically as possible. We put the cleanest ingredients in the product, and we really are focused on providing natural remedies that really not just help with things like the pain and the symptomatic presentation of illnesses, but actually facilitating their body to really heal. So we just love the feedback that we get, and thank you to everyone that is supporting our business.
Absolutely. And without further ado, let's get straight into the episode.
Enjoy.
Right on. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of, I almost said Here for the Truth podcast.
I love it, dude.
Natural AF podcast. I've got Yerasimos here, co-host of the Here for the Truth podcast. Man, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, Yerasimos is a next level body worker, somatics practitioner, and the chief ascension officer at Here for the Truth Inc. So welcome, brother.
Dude, the last bit's hilarious. Uh, yeah, man. Glad to be on Natural AF. What does the AF stand for?
Yeah, well, people can read into it, but it's also
Yeah.
just the name of it, the business, natural art form. But
Oh,
that
I
was
love it. I love it.
that
Oh,
was
cool, man. I like
intentional.
that, man. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm so happy that we've connected when we did, and
Yeah,
just excited to have a chat with you, man, and talk about whatever you want.
yeah. It's been like what has it been a year since I've been out there for the first time when we met?
I think a little less. I think you came out in October.
Yeah. Yeah, so for people that haven't been following my story and all that, but I met Yerasimos. I heard him on AlphaCast with his wife Sophie talking about somatics and body work and human design, and that piqued my interest, and I kind of kept it logged in the back of my mind until I felt compelled to like reach out to him and find out what that was all about. And I was going through some struggles in my life and some changes, but I wanted more change. Like that was the thing. I didn't want to like fix my life. I wanted to figure out where I was deficient or what I wasn't seeing, what my blind spots were. And honestly, dude, I had no idea what I was in for when I came out there. That little bit on the podcast, and doesn't quite explain what all that you've all the skills that you have. So, um, how would you even describe that kind of work? Because it wasn't just body work. I mean, it was a whole spectrum of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously anyone who knows me knows that like my focus primarily is, my work with Joel and the podcast and our group coaching program and everything else that we got going. But, for many years, I was seeing more clients one-on-one on doing, body work, transformational body work. I was very fortunate to, a little bit after moving to LA over a decade ago, I met a mentor of mine who was an ex-Navy SEAL, and he was trained in traditional Chinese medicine and some cool, body work modalities that are pretty intense. And so it's a little different than like a conventional massage, and even other forms of body work where I'm a fan of them. I like getting like rubbed down and doing some Swedish work, just anything that makes me feel relaxed. But this definitely, I think, hits you on a little bit of a deeper level. Our focus really is really getting into the pain of your tissues as long as you're able to be with it. I don't think it's work that I would do with someone that has highly, highly dysregulated nervous system. But if you have the capacity to be present and can actually feel pain, it's a work that I would explore. And my view is that our body holds so much of our history, the things that we've been through in life, the challenges we face, the traumas we hold. And that whole saying goes, your issues are in your tissues. And I believe it. And so working through the mind is one avenue, and talk therapy has brought value to some people's lives, but there's things that just, I think, need to dive deeper into the unconscious. And my view is the body is the shadow. The body is where we hold a lot of that material that we've ignored, that we've repressed, and that we're not even aware of. So doing body work like this is a way to bypass the conscious mind and dive in directly into the unconscious and see what bubbles up to the surface, whether it's emotions, whether it's memories, whether it supports a person to just expand their awareness and their consciousness. So, I mean, the main technique that I use is a technique that, you're lying on the floor, you're fully clothed, and I'm using a walker for leverage, a walker that like old people use to move around.
Yeah, that was cool.
And yeah, I walk on different parts of the body that correlate with the Chinese meridians, usually starting off with the backs of the legs, hamstrings, and the calves, that correlate with the largest meridian in the body, that has the most acupuncture points, which is the bladder channel. And I spend a lot of time there. It's not like a Thai massage where you're just kind of covering a bunch of different areas. Like we'll spend like 15, 20 minutes working on on the hamstrings, and then move down to the calves. And it's really, and we combine breath work with this as well. And breath work is used just to be able to be present to what's going on. And if you are feeling higher sensation, to really meet that and breathe heavily. So yeah, I mean, that's just a quick summary of it. But it's the work that changed my life as someone who, I guess, began my personal development journey, I guess you could say, and I would say more seriously in my early 20s. And I started reading books around these subjects, around psychology, around spirituality. And, I trained as an actor too, in a previous incarnation in this life, not another life. And was really interested in human behavior and also, why I am the way I am. How did my personality develop? How did that, how did my upbringing lead me to who I was, when I was gonna, attempt to be an actor, and how can I expand more of who I am so I can play more characters, so I can tap into deeper elements and more nuanced elements within myself and have more empathy for the characters I chose to play. Now, a lot of that work was a little bit more cerebral. Even some of the spiritual books that I read early on, not that I was fortunate I didn't get too sucked into like the new age world. I had a basis in psychology, which I think is really important, but the body was left out of it, the importance of somatics. And, over time people have, it's getting more popular. That term is a buzzword, somatics, trauma informed, and people are more aware of the role the body plays in a healing process. So, I had a certain level of knowledge and information, but once I moved to LA and I went through my own dark night of the soul, and that led me to a mentor of mine, this kind of work, whether it was through the body work I just mentioned or doing resistance work, which strengthens and stretches the body without overstretching it, and works on the fascial level, really getting those energy channels to flow. Like that kind of work really changed me on a permanent level. Like I really felt the difference. So that's a summary. I could keep talking, but yeah, that's a general summary.
That's a great. Do you still do this work like for yourself just periodically?
That's actually a great question, and not as often as I would like. Sophie's trained in this work as well, my wife, and we met doing this work. I guess 9 years ago. I guess you could say over 8, 9 years ago. No, 9 years ago. And we talk a lot about how we should be trading sessions, and we do occasionally, but not as often. And I love that you brought that up, because I'm at this place now where I just took my second Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class.
Yeah.
And I'm, realizing as a 43-year-old, while health has been my focus for many years, and I've considered myself a super healthy person, I've gotten a little complacent on the physical side of things, and, really helping to optimize my biomechanics and, my physical form. And so I feel like I'm getting a little kick in the ass to put more attention on that and not take certain things for granted. So yes, the long answer to your question is I'm not doing as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
And I could feel it. I could feel it a little bit. Now I'm not where I was, like once you do this work, I think there's definitely a permanent shift that happens. But, life happens. Maybe you don't take care of yourself as much. And so your nervous system, you can tune in and go, okay, I'm not where I want to be. I feel a little dysregulated. I might be a little bit more reactive. I might be a little bit more defensive. What do I need to do to kind of get more grounded and come back to myself?
Yeah. Yeah. And this stuff, man, like I don't know what to tell people sometimes, because I'm not sure they could find someone else to do what I went through. But even just like deep tissue massage and stuff like that. But I'm trying to share what I know about breath work now as well, and moving that, because it's been really eye-opening, especially like the tune in or the check-in that we did in between walking on me, and then you just pause and you do that 3-point check-in with your thoughts, your feelings, and the sensations in your body. Doing that, and probably for the first time really being aware of like the emotional connection to my physical sensations and where those things are at in the body. Like that started like a really good precedent for doing work later on, because it was so helpful to see like when emotions come up, where it's at in the body, and then to use that to connect to it. Because I worked with another therapist later on that was doing, supposedly it was EMDR, but I don't know if we actually did that much of the EMDR stuff, but it was very much like just kind of like, talking about whatever the issue is we're going to talk about. And then she would go directly to the body and just be like, all right, where in the body is it? Now go into that. And like I would imagine going into it, and then images and thoughts and things would start coming up, and we just keep pulling the thread basically. And that was like, it was just so cool how that primed me for that kind of work. And like you said earlier, about the body being the shadow. I wonder if you could go more into that, because I've heard it said that it's like the body is like the physical representation of the subconscious mind.
I
Um,
mean, yeah, I mean, I think that statement summarizes it well. Our body is the physical manifestation of our subconscious mind, and I would even say our conscious mind. The things that we're thinking and we're aware of on a daily basis, and how that can impact our body on many different levels. So yeah, I mean, if the shadow, anyone who does personal development work, the shadow is a term that's been thrown around a lot, and ultimately it is the things. It's like the things you don't know. You don't know that you don't know. Things that you've repressed, and also things that you've undeveloped. And it's not just dark things. It's also, potentially really empowering qualities that you don't have access to. Maybe, they were repressed based on, your conditioning, through culture, through family, through religion, etc. So the shadow is where those elements of yourself are hiding that need to be reclaimed and reintegrated. And yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's like my favorite thing to do now. I'm like, what other forms of shadow work can I get into? Like I've talked about, or you brought up the dark room retreat idea. Love that idea. Like I don't know, like is that kind of the same thing as like shadow work, or is that more of like a
Well,
creative
well,
kind of?
well, I mean, I think it can lead to shadow work. Obviously, you're putting yourself and your body and your consciousness in a completely different setting. I mean, you're literally existing in complete darkness for a certain period of time. And actually, my teacher, um, my old teacher, my old mentor, who was the ex-Navy SEAL, he spent time in at Dow Gardens, which is Montauk Chia's center in Chiang Mai, and they do dark rooms there. And so he spent a lot of time there. And I know this one place has gotten really popular. I think it's in Arizona, no, in Oregon, because Aaron Rodgers went there,
Mm,
and some other like quote unquote influencers have
right.
been there. But I've never done it before. I just think the being in darkness, complete darkness for a few days is going to have an impact on you. What you do with that, it's unique for each person. But I think anything that allows you to become aware of things that you weren't previously aware of, and how you relate to that new awareness is going to impact you. I personally think shadow work without that doesn't include the body is incomplete. It's very cerebral. Sure, you may get some benefit from it, but we're looking at more presence. We're looking at more embodiment, and doing that deep inner work is super important. And most of us, we have our gaze focused externally, like what's going on in my life. There's a whole universe outside of me, but then you have a universe within, and it's like, are you curious about that?
Yeah.
Do you wonder why you make the decisions that you make? Why you keep attracting the same relationships? Why relationships don't work? All these kinds of things, like data we take in from our environment based on our decisions. Like, we got to use that information to go, hey, okay, well, what do I want in my life, and how can I improve? And I personally think the more one integrates elements from their shadow, they become more whole, and they have more nuance within themselves, and they have more capacity to be successful in different areas of their lives because they have access to more parts of themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear that word a lot in different contexts, integration. Um, how do you truly like integrate some of these things? Like, let's say there is a shadow piece of you that's like, like a bit of an adrenaline junkie that wants to like jump off of cliffs and throw a parachute up and like all that. And like a friend of mine, ours, Eric Asano was talking about that with the unconscious death urge. So it's like you don't want to shut that down and just repress it and then let it bubble up at some other point. But how would you actually integrate that to where it's not just like triggering you into like these adrenaline kind of feasting times?
Well, I mean, this is the work. Each individual has to figure that out. But how do you integrate it? Well, one, you first realize that it's a habitual pattern that you're doing. It's happening probably unconsciously, and then you go, oh wow, this is a part of me. Like the part of me that wants to like risk my life or get a high based on whatever activity you're doing. And, you can trace that back to a whole number of things, why a person is that way. I mean, some people might be more inclined, even just, just their nature to be that. But if someone's like doing something all the time, and then maybe that's part of their journey, but if they want to just have more choice around it, because it's really about choice. Like integration is really about like, hey, I can stand between the tension of opposites, these two different opposing parts of me, and maybe come to a new realization. And maybe you're like, oh, instead of doing something extreme 7 days a week, maybe I'm doing it once or twice a week, But if there's that urge to want to do it all the time, like, is there a way to transmute it? Or maybe that's just your fucking life purpose, and you're going to be a skydiver and you're going to do it and you're cool with it. And if your life ends at 50, then then you're, what I'm saying? Like, I think I could speak about things in a general way, but it's also up to the individual. But I think integration first comes with recognizing that this is a part of you, that it's not just you. And then also what wisdom exists on the other side. So if someone's attention thrill seeking, maybe there's a part of this person that is a little bit more cautious, or maybe more responsible in certain ways. And how can they integrate that piece in their life? Like, for instance, let's say someone who's an adrenaline junkie has a child. Now, naturally, they might be like, okay, I have a child now. I have someone else to think about. I have more responsibilities. Like, and so maybe those aspects of the person might play on them more as they're making decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I feel like that's an area that isn't looked at as integration of shadow, where people are trying to become successful and like optimize, like, their productivity in business and stuff like that. I kind of look at it that way, as like, you have that potential in you and you're looking for the depths of it, trying to get in contact with that. But I really feel like, at least in my life, some of that stuff was blocked until I could like let go of some things. Like especially just recently, I had this realization of the difference in my body, the way it feels when, say, like, I need money versus I want money. Like that part of me in there that's like fear, I need it. And then as soon as I shifted it to like, I'll take it, I'll take whatever, whatever comes, but I don't need it. I don't need it to be happy. Things like that start coming out when you can really practice and start doing some of this work. And the shift can be quick. I don't know if you've experienced that, but when I made that shift, or when I noticed that, then things sort of became easier. It didn't all become like, money didn't pour in, but jobs started coming in and stuff almost like right away. It was weird.
Well, I mean, I think what you're talking about even there, just in that specific example, is like a more scarcity based mindset versus the opposite. You can call it whatever you want. But what you're doing there is you're becoming more aware of more of you. So there's a part of you that is is needing money from a fear-based place, but then there's another part of you that's like, sure, I love money, I'll take it, great. It's a little bit maybe more chill. Maybe it's more trusting that money will come to you. And so it's whether or not you're aware of this. And it doesn't mean that like that part that's fearful isn't gonna peek in, but you have an awareness to go, oh hey buddy, there you are again, I got you. I hear what you're saying, you're concerned. Like, you almost have to like talk to yourself as if you're talking to different people within you, because that's really what it is. I mean, we all have multiple personalities. We just don't have the disorder. Like, we have some level of awareness, like, oh wait, this part just kind of took over. I mean, just look at road rage, for instance. I've used this example multiple times on the podcast. Like, you're chilling, driving, and then all of a sudden someone cuts you off, and people are going to react differently. But for many people, like, this part comes in that's fucking pretty hardcore, aggressive or angry. And, maybe like a deep vulnerability was triggered. Like, shit, I almost got into a car accident, I could have died. But you don't sit with that in that moment. You get into like a much more defensive, protective, aggressive part of you. So again, it's just about the great work, that people talk about, is really knowing yourself and building greater self-awareness, and beyond awareness, because awareness is just awareness. There's no action in it. Okay. It's just the witness state, but really expanding your consciousness to have more choices available to you. You know what I mean? So for instance, let's say there's an event that happens to you in your life that causes, money to lessen in your bank account. Okay. Now you might feel both of these parts of you playing on you as you've expanded your sense of self and awareness. but then you ultimately choose, like, oh, okay, well, how do I want to, maybe I reframe this, or it's not about repression either. Like, we don't want to just like completely repress and bypass like the part of us that's like a little bit maybe scared about like not having enough money but what part of you drives the car, in any given moment, and for how long?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I say drive the car, I mean it from a metaphorical standpoint, not my example before about road rage, but it holds true there as well.
drive with my knee so I can stick the rifle out the window.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But man, like sometimes these things change like a big piece where it's like almost like an iceberg flips and then it's like really shifted. And sometimes it's like you said, like these little things will kind of peek back in every now and then. And I've heard you talk about I forget the exact quote about there's a gap between stimulus and response.
Viktor Frankl's quote.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it pretty well, but like, I think I might have it here somewhere just so I don't butcher it. But it's around in between stimulus and response, there is a space. Within that space, there is a gap. Hold up, let me find it real quickly.
Yeah. And who's Viktor?
Because it's a great quote, and it's actually a quote that I used to utilize. Maybe I had it on my old computer. Give me 1 second. If not, I'll just look it up real quickly because it's really, I think it's an important quote. Why isn't it there? Here, I'll look it up real quickly.
It's one of those few things that I've heard like once, and then I keep playing it back in my head. It's so fascinating because it's like there's moments where like I'll see myself react quickly because like part of me that's like a thing of pride, like, oh yeah, I got quick reaction time or whatever. But we learned this in the military too. There's a technique called listen, think, pause, respond. And I'm finding that very useful in like relationships and stuff where it's just like, yeah, like I can come up with an answer right away to everything. But it's like what men often do, I would often do is like when a woman's talking about her feelings or whatever, I would just have like an instant response. And now it's like, hey, pause and like think about it for a second. Don't just like rattle off an answer. And I'm doing that more with myself too, where it's like I'll feel an emotional response come up and I'm not super connected to that. Like I don't instantly know what I'm feeling or why all the time. But now I'm just like, I'll literally like put my hand on my chest and I'll just be like, what is this? What are you trying to get my attention for?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's inquiry right there, and it takes work because depending on what a person has been through, what trauma they've been through, what patterns they've built up, that impacts their reactivity. I mean, and, you made a general statement, but it's true to a certain degree in terms of men. We tend to want to just like come right in and provide a solution and fix the situation when most of the time what I found, being in a relationship for almost 9 years, a woman just wants to be heard. She just wants to feel like safe to express what's going on with her and not have like their partner come in and with their Superman cape on and be like, I'll save the day. I'll tell you what you need to do. But yeah, anyways, the Viktor Frankl quote is this: between the stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom and power to choose our responses. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So, if you are a slave to your conditioning and your conditioned responses because, you haven't done a certain amount of work on your nervous system or whatever else, kind of work it's going to support you to have more space, it's going to impact. It's going to impact your relationship. That's going to impact, you on the job because something happens or your boss says something to you. I mean, if you have a boss and then, you react in a certain way. And so at the end of the day, how we choose, how we respond, the accumulation of that, the amalgamation of that in our whole life, like determines like who we are and who we become. And so, making the right choices and reacting properly, depending on what's most appropriate for the situation, really, really, really impacts the trajectory of our life.
Yeah. Man, there's so much in that quote that's just like that definitely is going to go on the wall at some point. Who is Viktor Frankl again? I don't
Viktor
remember.
Frankl was an existential psychologist who spent time um, in a work camp, in a concentration camp during World War II. And he pretty much came to the realization he invented something. I'm saying something called logotherapy. But he came to the realization through his observations in the work camps that it wasn't the people that were like the strongest and most fit that ended up persevering and surviving, but it was people who had meaning, who still had something to live for. And for him, I think it was his work, his insight and his observations that he wanted to get out into the world, versus just like someone who was like strong and built but didn't have that inner knowledge, inner knowing, or that desire to keep living, or having deep meaning in their life, something to live for. Obviously that's just one element of who he is, but a brilliant mind from our past.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
Oh, and real quick, I just want to highlight on that quote because I've used it with clients in the past, and it's one thing. It's one thing we're doing even with the body work. Especially if you look at things from a Reichian standpoint, Wilhelm Reich, of really kind of softening some of that armoring. The armoring that a person gets really builds up a rigidity within them, which is going to impact, how connected they are to the deepest parts of themselves and how expanded they are. So with someone that's really deep body work and the breath work that's associated with it, or even more subtle nervous system work, like somatic experiencing or other modalities of that ilk, it really, I think, helps create some of that space. So you have more space to choose a different response and react differently than maybe you have reacted in similar situations in the previous 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
nice. Yeah. What's the way you would describe like somatic experiencing? I feel like there's so much to it. And it seems like it has like some very simple practices and then some things that are kind of mind blowing.
Well, yeah, somatic experiencing. I went through the training with my wife. I didn't finish the final, I think, in-person thing. I went through the 3 modules. I had my own opinions about it, but it's based off the work of Peter Levine, a brilliant man. And it's really getting just a deeper connection to what's happening within yourself from a sensation level, from an emotion level. And slowly, and this is where somatic experiencing differs from some of the more intense forms of, let's say, release work or somatic work, is it's all about titration. It's like little by little discharging some of that sympathetic stress that's stored in the body, due to trauma that's happened. Because if you look at animals in nature, let's just give an example of like a gazelle. A gazelle's just chilling, doing its thing in the savannah, and then a lion shows up and goes after it. Let's say the gazelle gets away. They have this unconscious process that happens naturally where they're in this position that once they get away, their body starts trembling and shaking and starts discharging that sympathetic stress that was built up during the encounter. Now, humans, we have that similar mechanism, but we have conscious minds and a mind that kind of can disrupt that and get in the way. And so this energy gets stored in the body. Now, we're not just dealing with like excess sympathetic stress. There are different people that might be stuck in other states. Maybe they're more depressed. They're in like a more of a freeze state. So somatic experiencing is a real subtle way of and other modalities similar to that of guiding a person inwards to more slowly connect to these elements within themselves and start the process of kind of moving some of this energy or shifting some of this energy that's stored in their body so they can break patterns, and then they could relate to their environment in a new way.
Nice. Yeah. What's the so the adrenaline response, right? That's like what you're talking about with the somatic or the sympathetic response. 'Cause I noticed that like you get hit by a car like in a vehicle accident or something and you get the shakes. Is that similar to like the gazelle shaking it off after getting freed from the lion? Or
Well, yeah, I think it would happen like once you come to this place of like, I'm safe now. So there's been built up all this, this charge, and then you get to a place and you're comfortable with letting it go. Like for instance, I'll give an example. I got assaulted and mugged and robbed in New York City when I lived there. This was I think it was 2007 or 2008. Can't remember. I was in between um, apartments, and I just got back from Greece, and I was going to go visit a friend of mine who lived in Spanish Harlem. I got to his place. I got buzzed in, so I was already safe in the building. I got buzzed in. I started walking up the first floor, and then when I turned the corner and got to like the stairs to like go up to the next step, I saw three like, maybe guys in their young 20s or like, maybe 19, 20. And like immediately I just like felt like, oh, this isn't a good situation. And I just kind of said, what's up? Turned the corner, and they just attacked me from behind and took all my stuff. Now, immediately when that happened, did I lay there and just kind of allow that process to move through me? I don't know if I fully did. I remember running up to my friend's room finally, and he was wondering what took me so long to get up 5 stories in a walk up. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had stayed in that state. Now I remember a little bit of kind of trembling happening, but I don't think it was like full, which makes sense because for months afterwards, when I was in New York City and I was bartending at the time, I would finish work late and I'd get dropped off by a cab to my home. And like, I mean, I was much more on edge. I was much more like sensitive. And so it took time, obviously, once I started doing more body work and somatic work, where like that habitual response no longer became my reality. So again, it depends on the person, who they are, the state of their psyche, their sense of identity, their sense of self, that's going to determine, how they relate to a certain situation and whether or not naturally they have the capacity to allow this process to occur. For most people, they'll be like, oh, well, that's a sign of weakness. So maybe like their mind just kind of hijacks it and they don't allow them to go through this process.
Yeah. Yeah. That awareness we talked about earlier is so key with stuff like this too, because I know for me and other people that I've known, like that physiological response can be dormant for like a decade or more, and then something comes along and triggers that. And then all of a sudden you're reacting stronger than what you anticipated for the situation. And you're like, where is this coming from? But then with this work, now that I'm aware, to not project that onto the other person or into the situation or to other people, there's an opportunity there to go back and like maybe release what was there before, or at least start working on it if you don't know how. But
yeah, 100%, man. Because again, on some level, when we're getting triggered so deeply, we're not feeling safe. Like we're not feeling safe. And on some level, maybe we don't have the capacity to like even sit with the part of us that's like vulnerable in the moment. Just think of like vulnerability and like power as this like meta pair of opposites. Most arguments, most fights, most acts of violence, there's a part that's like not feeling safe. And so a person's not obviously having this, conscious awareness of it, like, I'm not feeling safe right now. So now I'm going to pick up a bat and hit someone across the face, or like, tell my partner to go fuck themselves, like it's all happening like that, these patterns are there isn't the space between the stimulus and response. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as we do more of this work, whatever you want to call it, the work, of becoming more whole, of bringing more regulation to our nervous system, of gaining more awareness of the different parts of us, we then build a greater capacity to respond differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Expanding your ability and that capacity. It's like, that's something that I think from now on, I'm definitely going to be, sharing that with as many people as I can, because it's powerful and it's important. And it's like, there's not too many other ways to get around it. You have to kind of go through that. You can't just be like, you can do hypnotherapy, you can try, I don't know, but like, I feel like being present and conscious and choosing and getting better and exercising that muscle of choice, and awareness about why you're feeling, or I think for a lot of men, this is a very general statement, aren't really connected to their emotions or understanding them, and especially with regards to women. I feel like that's like a very common thing, and it's understandable. But like, um, just having the capacity to go in there and like face it directly, not confrontationally, but just accepting like what's there, whatever it is.
Yeah, man, I agree. And, due to conditioning and um socially and familial from our families, a lot of men, they aren't taught to get in touch with that part of them. And that doesn't mean you want to go too much to the extreme and just
Hmm.
be wallowing in your vulnerability, but what is wholeness? Wholeness is having access to these parts of you, but ultimately choosing what's the most appropriate way to respond in a situation. And so if we're just looking at general dynamics between, let's say male and a female, I think there are those elements where the male is the protector, the male, like women can feel safe around the male. Now, it doesn't always work this way. There's so much nuance in relationship and partnership, but generally speaking, it's important. And, I think we're in this place now where I think women are realizing that there's been too much of a flip on both sides. And we're trying to just kind of come back to a sense of balance. Because I remember in like the old days, women are like, well, I just want my man to tell me how he's feeling all the time. And then they do, and they're like, oh, we don't want that much. Just chill. So it's
Right.
like, come on. That's why I think like men connecting with other men in men's groups, and being able to expose these parts of themselves is important because they gain access to it, but then they can maybe like play more of that role in partnership where, maybe a woman, traditionally speaking, and I'm just speaking traditionally. I know there's a lot of variation and
Hmm.
adaptations in individuals and how they relate, but traditionally speaking, they do want to feel that sense of safety, and if a man is like wallowing in his vulnerability all the time, they're not going to feel that. And I say that as someone who, I was raised a little bit of his mama's boy. I needed to do some more work, but I have my moments. I have my moments where like I can maybe complain a little too much and not feeling really solid and strong in who I am. But again, this is all about really understanding that there's so much to us. I've brought up the Walt Whitman quote many times. We contain multitudes. And I think the more parts of us that we can get in touch with, and then we have the consciousness and the ability to choose how we behave in a given moment because we have that space, because we have that expanded awareness, that is going to impact our lives and our relationships, and the trajectory of who we become in a huge way. And so like I just commend you, man. I just want to say this, dude. I commend you for like listening to a podcast and being like, wow, this seems cool. Like I like this guy's vibe. I'm gonna drive from fucking Wyoming to Topanga, California, and spend 5 days with this person and do this kind of work. Not many people would do that, and so like you have my utmost respect. And I know you were going through your personal dark night of the soul, and you
Yeah.
went full force, man. You went into it, and it set the stage in a new way for all this other work that you're doing to land. Because it's not like I don't sit here and go like, well, if you do this 5 times, it will solve all your problems. Like fucking life is a journey. Like I've been in personal development work for a really long time, but like I got issues, man. You know what I mean? Like I got issues that I'm still working on. Some of our issues we can resolve quickly, but some of that stuff, this is our fucking cross to bear, man. This is when you get into astrology, maybe you get into human design or some of these systems, they highlight these aspects of you, like these archetypes. These archetypes are there for you to come up against,
Yeah.
and it's a continual theme in your life. And so it's not like we just approach this place of like, I'm healed. Now I'm perfect. Now I'm gonna dissolve into the ether, and get to 11D.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know we joke about that all the time in Friends of the Truth, but it's just
Yeah.
like there's no like, where are you heading? Like you just want to continue little by little, taking more steps and getting new awareness, seeing how you relate to yourself and relate to other people's, and just step by step, man, just feeling more embodied, more connected to your emotional life, to your body, to the it's just a process, man. Life is a fucking experiment,
Yeah.
and hopefully we get some tools along the way that allow us to be more successful at this experiment.
Yeah. That's a great way to describe it, man. I used to think of it as like a pendulum. Like early on, like man, when I was like a teenager, even I had like this sense. Maybe it was about myself. Maybe there was like a change that I was going through. And I just visualize like this pendulum swinging, oh, it's coming back again. Like here goes another change, upgrade, choices to make, something. And then as I grew older, I started looking at it more as like a vortex. It's like a similar back and forth motion, but you look at it in the 3D, life is just like this energetic vortex. And yeah, like you don't just arrive and like I have ascended, like maybe at some point, but even at that point, I think if you do achieve 11D and you are ascended master, there's just a bigger vortex. It's just another iteration of the same wheel on a higher realm.
Yeah.
That's just a theory.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And real quickly, for anyone that was listening at the beginning, when he said Chief Ascension Officer, it's an inside joke between us and our community of Friends of the Truth and Here for the Truth, because we like to joke around like people who think they've arrived to like this highly enlightened state and like don't need to be human anymore. And at the end of the day, we are human, and we actually get in a really good conversation about this with Jeff Brown. We interviewed him last week, and the episode's being released Sunday, the July 16th. So. For anyone listening, check that out. But we got to become more human, man. We don't need to become more like pseudo spiritual and say the right things and read the right books. Like we need to really connect to the depth of our humanness and see that we share this humanness. And I think the more we do that, the more we get grounded in that and we have access to more of who we are, then we'll ultimately be more compassionate and we'll ultimately not allow ourselves to get caught up and sucked into this divide and conquer agenda that our architects of control love to play out, all the time.
Yeah. I mean, you see that this trope come up a lot in movies and like with the gods on Olympus, and they've got the chessboard and they got the little pieces and they're moving Hercules down the line and like doing all this stuff. And people do kind of like I live my life that way, where I'm just like being bumped around unconsciously, like, why God? Like, things like that. But then I feel like I had a moment where I stood up from the table and I could actually see the other pieces. And part of what helped me see that and have more compassion for myself and what I've been through and like the different ages was learning more about astrology and human design. And I feel like
What's your profile again? Are you 3/5?
3/5, yeah, manifesting generator. Or
yeah, I mean that's
as a masturbating generator.
that's hilarious. No, but what I was gonna say before, even because I thought I remembered you being a 3/5, even when you said like being bumped around by the universe. I mean, that's part of your theme as a 3/5 is like you have the 3 line, which is all about learning through trial and error. And so part of your life is to embrace, I don't want to say chaos, but like embrace this, like you're just going to go head first into things and you're going to learn and you're going to bump into relationships and bump into experiences. And through that process is where you gain the wisdom. And then you can universalize that. Then you can be the leader and be like, hey, yo, I've been there. I've done that. Like, let me show you the way. Let me guide you. And so, so much of self-knowledge is self-acceptance, and these systems like human design or astrology or the card system or numerology, whatever, like insert any system in there that provides value. They're there to highlight, part of like this say genetic soul blueprint that you are here to play. You come into this world with like a map of like your consciousness, and they support you on that. And so can you accept yourself and go, hey, listen, my name's Yerasimos. I'm going to have a completely different experience than Isaac. Like, yes, we're human beings, but, we're here to play a different game of life. And so what tools benefit us the most? But it's ours. It's ours. Like my life is fucking mine. No one could take that away from me. My challenges, my accomplishments, it's mine. And can you take ownership of that and really fucking be excited about that? I know it's harder when you're in the dumps, when you're in the dark night of the soul, when you're fucking like, when that part of you is just like swallowed up your psyche and you're like, there's no hope, but welcome to Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. And moving through that and coming out of it, like there's always this huge opportunity to learn something about yourself that no one can take away from you. You go through these hardships and then you find a new depth within yourself. And I feel like that's pretty universal. I mean, people go to different scales of like how much they awaken. But I mean, unless you just end up flatline and dead, like there's always something you learn and you keep moving. Like everybody just keeps moving until they choose to check out or if they get taken out. But like, um, so reading deeper into that, there's so much depth to it, and everything's connected to like the body, like we discussed. I feel like when I go internally, I'm looking at like the mirror to like the universe. There's so much depth within each person where like everyone's pointing at each other for problems, and it's like you can explore and find so much more healing if you go within. And then when you correct that, or you start working with yourself, then you can deal well, way better with the external world. And that,
Yeah,
man, the Friends of the Truth community group that you guys started, I'm just blown away at the caliber of people that are in there that have been attracted to it. It's people that have chosen themselves like I did when I went to see you and did this work. These people that stepped up and showed up for themselves like that. And you can see how it plays out in the rest of their lives. Like they've all got some kind of like genius that they bring to the group.
oh yeah, man. I want to talk about that, but when you were talking earlier, it made me think of a couple of quotes that popped in my head, and one was from Wilhelm Reich, where he goes, "Once we open up to the flow of energy within our body, we can also open up to the flow of energy in the universe." Again, it's like the great Hermetic axiom, "As within, so without." And then there's the amazing Nietzsche quote, "There's more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy." And so these are things, it's like we have to turn the gaze inward, inward, like in a holistic manner. Like, what is happening within us? We're given this body in this lifetime. Okay. Yeah. I know all the new agers were like, well, I'm not my body and I need to transcend my body. But you know what? You're on fucking planet Earth. You have a body. What are you doing with it? Do you know it? Like, are you taking care of it? Are you listening to it? You know what I mean? So it's extremely important. And that's how the world is going to change, is the more people that become embodied, not in this like corny, like esoteric way, but just really embodied, more human, feeling themselves, knowing themselves, having a connection to their emotional life, integrating more parts of themselves, and seeing how that plays out in their dance with themselves and in relationship. Now, in terms of Friends of the Truth, I fucking love our community, man. I love it. Like, I feel so blessed, like what Joel and I have been able to, create, and, the people that have come through, they're just such awesome human beings, and I love them. And such like talented people, with what they do. And, we just wanted to set the example, with the podcast, the podcast being this place to like explore truth. What does it mean? Like, can we challenge ourselves? Can we challenge our belief systems? We want it to be empowering too, and bring back power to the individual and exalt the best of the human spirit. That's our mission. And then Friends of the Truth was just kind of like a natural outsource of the podcast, and even our group coaching program, Rise Above the Herd, which we just started our 6th round of it. And, a bunch of people that have gone through that have stayed on in Friends of the Truth. And just, man, I just love it. It's so much fun. We have fun too, like joking, being serious, being there, supporting one another. So many people from all around the world.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see it grow. So I'm happy that you joined, first of all, and that you've gotten value out of it. And you're engaged, man. So I love that.
Yeah, man, and it's so cool seeing these synchronicities. Like there's some major ones with the nodal shift, and I can't explain it very well because I'm not an astrologer, but there's like Rahu and Ketu, the north and south node, that are kind of like these dark spots in the sky, sort of. I don't know, but they shift and they matter because I'm going through like a nodal return, which is like where they're coming back to where they were when I was born. And my north node is in Aries and my south node is in Libra. And that recent expert call with Sarah was just, I'm just sitting there, I'm just like when she answered my question about what that means, I was like, yep. Every single one of those things is exactly a description of like this past year for me. It's like a lot of closing out the old, setting up for the new, and like, it's really cool to see that, because like I was talking about that chessboard, I feel like, okay, I'm able to see above it, and I'm like, it's been a bumpy ride, but it's supposed to be for whatever reason for me. Like I'm a bumper car, I guess, but a fun bumper car, like a V8 bumper car.
Well, it's all about how you reframe, your life experiences, and like, human design, the person who was given this knowledge and who has helped grow it, He passed away however many years ago, over a decade ago. He says like human design ultimately is for the children. And so like, if parents understand these elements of their children, their profile, their strategy, their authority, they can really, it's not about like micromanaging, but they can guide their children, they can educate their children, they can relate to their children in a very different way. And so anyone with a 3 line, making quote unquote mistakes is part of their life. So if a child's being criticized for a mistake, supposed mistake, or they're being like praised, like, oh my God, that's amazing. This is how you learn. Like, keep doing it. Keep going out there. Keep just figuring things out and like what works, what doesn't work. That's going to have a huge impact on that child's sense of self, their self-esteem, and how they evolve through life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's extremely important, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point about that. Like, there's probably a lot more that I could uncover with that with my own daughter, but just knowing, so she's a 6'2", and she's kind of in a little bit in that hermit phase. And in the past, I was like, oh, I need to like push her out there into the world and like get her to, be more outgoing and stuff like that. I'm like, I didn't try very hard to do that because she's also very strong in herself, where she'll tell me to like go fuck off or whatever. Not in those words yet, but like
I get it though. But 6'2", man. But she's in the three phase of the 6 because she's before 30, and so like she's actually a 3 right now, a 3-2, I guess you can say. So she's actually living that trial and error, that life as a 3, kind of figuring out what works, what doesn't work. Now there can be that internal friction between the two that just constantly wants to be left alone to do their own thing, but then realizing, oh, I got to go out there and engage with life and bump into things relationally and professionally, etc. But again, we all have our journey to take in this life. I mean, Joel's a 6'2", so you can talk to him about it. But there's a deep inherent wisdom that a 6'2" is born with, where they're kind of like, yeah, I've been here, I know this, I intuitively know like the right thing to do.
Yeah. It's amazing to watch. And I tell people like she inherited like the best side of myself, where she's kind of got a lot of the things figured out that I didn't have. So where she's at now, she's 19 going on 20, and solid, So, but yeah, having that for children and being aware of their profile, their design, like it matches so well. It's not like you're guessing. Like honestly, anybody who really looks into human design, you're like, smokes, like, yeah, this is legit. There's value here. So
yeah, dude, there is value. And also I want to say that like there are also people out there that have lived lovely lives and they've never known about any of these systems. But we're in a world now where things are a little crazy, and we have these tools that allow us to shine a light a little deeper and maybe more specifically into certain qualities of us. But then it's up to the individual. Does this check out? Like when you expose yourself to this information, does it give you that aha moment? Does it allow you to feel more empowered? Does it allow you to accept yourself more? Does it allow you to get out of the compare and contrast game and go like, this is who I am, like warts and all, like strengths, the things that I'm challenged with. And with human design, what I love is that there are practical elements of it when it gets to strategy and authority that you can always fall back on, because different types. And then again, this is as a parent, like if you have 3 children and they're 3 different types, like you may have to interact and engage with them differently. How you treat a manifester is going to be very different than how you treat a projector or a generator. And so again, this comes back to having more self-knowledge and more knowledge in general as a parent. Yeah, man, like take what works, leave the rest. I mean, that's the story of my life. I love learning. I love sharing that knowledge. I love inspiring people with education to know, like, this is your birthright. Like, learn, like, see beyond what has been conditioned into you by family, by society, by the media and all that, and go, like, who are you and what's your gift? What's your purpose? And these systems can help someone in that process. And I found, because that's what it's done for me.
yeah.
Learning my human design, learning about my cards, learning about my astrology. I've just been more comfortable. Like, yo, this is who I am now. Yeah, at some level, like, do you get all this knowledge in, and then you're just like, I'm not going to micromanage and go, well, the stars are this, and I can't do this, and well, I'm this way only because my human design tells me. Like, you can't get too rigid either.
Yeah.
You got to live your fucking life.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you see this leading? Like all this stuff. I mean, I feel like it's been going on for a bit, but I really feel like talking to people and hearing their stories, like things have kind of started escalating, especially since 2020, with people waking up, people doing this internal work. Like, where do you see this going for the pockets of us that are more conscious with this?
Um, as a general rule, I mean, I think it's going where we're seeing it's going. People are more curious about who they are. They're more curious about what their deepest purpose is, as opposed to just like going along to get along or following the status quo. Um, from a human design standpoint, I know there's a big shift happening. Like I think every 400 years, there's a new cross that takes over and influences the theme of the collective, and so we're moving from the cross of planning to the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And I haven't dove too deep into it, and some elements of it are quite esoteric. But generally speaking, we're moving more towards individualism as opposed to collectivism. It's really important, I think, for people to have nervous system regulation as we approach this shift in 2027. So I think people that are focused on truth, focused on their unique selves, focused on what their purpose is and wanting to heal and get as conscious as possible, they're going to I think they're going to see more benefit. It doesn't mean, again, you're not going to have challenges, because every step on the growth process, you're bringing things in that you weren't aware of previously, and that process can be like a little janky, and painful. So, but if you have the capacity and the desire and the openness and the willingness to go like, fucking, I'm in it. Let's go. Let's live life. Let's grow. Let's see what's hidden in the shadows. I want to have better relationships. I want to do work that fulfills me, that's aligned with who I am and who I'm born to be. I think people are going to experience positive results from that. And as for people that aren't, well, they may get like harder slaps in the face, and maybe they will get to that place.
Yeah.
You can only ignore truth for so long.
Yeah.
And I don't mean truth, just external truth, but inner truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll come up. I was wondering, like, do you think that so the whole COVID pandemic, all that stuff, do you feel like there's an element of the so-called controllers or human farmers that do things like this in order to push people to wake up, to like seek out a better, higher way instead of being pinned up with the rest of the cattle?
I mean, it could be if you're looking at things from a much more benevolent standpoint. Sure, that's one way to interpret it, and sure, I like it. I like that, but that's how I interpret it. I don't interpret it that they're consciously, people that are in power that want, to subjugate the population, that they then want people to wake up. I don't know if that's happening, but sure, that's an option. I'm open to it, but I think it provides an opportunity, when you face challenges in life, like you mentioned earlier, it provides the opportunity to build more resilience, to go inwards and build that inner strength and inner knowing. And that's just life. That's just what it means to be human. But as overall, like, I don't know what's meant for humanity. Yes, you have ancient sages that have said there are different periods that we're moving towards, and we're moving maybe more towards a golden age, but that we're obviously gonna have to go through some really, really dark, hard times. But man, like, enjoy the ride. There's so much we know, there's so much we don't know. And so this is why I always bring it back to the individual. What can you control? Whether or not you want to think of the architect's control in a positive way or a not so positive way, like, there's so many things that are happening that are out of our control. And so why are you spending so much time, not you personally, but you in general, why are you spending so much time and energy focusing on things that disempower you, that disconnect you, that keep you in a place of fear? And it's like, well, let's see if we can shift that and move to something that's more empowering. And so I'm excited for how things are going to unfold. I'm grateful for the last few years. I'm just grateful, man. I mean, we wouldn't have met. There's so many relationships that have happened. I wouldn't have met Joel. Here for the Truth probably wouldn't have started. Friends of the Truth wouldn't have started. Rise Above the Herd wouldn't have started. you know, and all of this cool stuff that's going on with a lot of our mutual friends in the world. And it's exciting times. And more people, I think more and more people, even people that maybe weren't on the page of like seeking out like, you know, truth and going down rabbit holes. And I think I think more people are starting to be like, something's off. Like, I don't know if I trust my government. I don't know if I trust the media. I may not know exactly what's going on. I may be afraid to speak that out because I might be afraid of being labeled a conspiracy theorist or like a MAGA Trump supporter or whatever else they label you, a flat earther, for going against the grain. But I think people are becoming more hip to like, there is a shift happening, something's off. And again, how they deal with that, it's up to them.
Yeah. I'm excited for everyone. Cause like for me, this whole thing has been like the gift that keeps on giving, man. Like it's just, there's so many, like, I feel like I went through like a wormhole at some point, like time warp, like Music in Sky. I feel like I was there for like weeks, you know, it was only like what, 3 or 4 days or something, but
yeah, but dude, you literally, I could see how that would be because you came out of a 5-day experience with me.
Yeah.
Doing things that 99.9% of humanity probably won't ever experience, you know, then going into this environment that's like incredible. Like, I could see how that would be like time would just stop. Plus, the way you take in information from your surroundings based on the 5 days experience with me shifted. So that's going to impact your experience with everyone else there, man. So, I mean, what a gift to yourself that you gave, man, and that you planned it that way. Like, and remember, you chose this, man. You made the choices. You have hit multiple crossroads in your life. And so, like, again, kudos to you. There are many people who hit the crossroads in their life and they choose the status quo. They choose staying the same. They choose regressing back into fear or complacency versus what's in the unknown. Let me figure it out.
Yeah. There's so many, like, I mean, there's challenges potentially, but there's so many gifts in the unknown. And I can't wait. I mean, I'm not going to rush to get there because I'm enjoying every little step, man. There's so much. There's like, so much I feel like I missed and in my life, like early on, just like rushing from thing to thing. And there'll always be a part of me that still does that, but like I'm really learning to savor like sometimes every minute of something, you know, just being way more present with it.
Yeah, man. Amazing. And that, again, that starts with the stuff that you talked about earlier, and then even some of the stuff we worked on. Like, do you check in with yourself? Are you more present? Are you aware of what's happening? Or are you just literally a slave to your conditioning? And most people are slaves to their conditioning, all their habitual responses. You know, they don't know that a universe lives within them. They don't understand that there are things that they can do to improve their state, the way they feel, the way they move forward in the world. You know, and it's like it starts with that awareness and then making the choices to want to fucking be better and to enjoy life more.
Nice. Perfect. Man, I feel like that's like a really good place to land this plane. And
Cool.
dude, I love these conversations, man. I can't wait to be back out in California at some point, hang out. The next time will probably be Music in Sky.
Yeah. Cool, dude. Can't wait.
Unless,
That's next month, man. It's about a month away. Literally a month away.
yeah, this is awesome. So yeah, I'll be out there for that, and that's going to be another one of these like trips around the vortex, man. Let's go.
I can't wait, man. Dude, thanks for having me on, dude. Appreciate you. Like, obviously, you know, I got your back. Just support you, man. Everything that you do, dude. You're a good human, a good soul, man. Keep doing your thing. And, you know, anytime you want me to have back on and just have a rap or chat, I'm totally down.
Yeah, dope. I should have you and Joel on at some point together. We can like, just
Cool.
party it
We're
out.
down. We're down, man.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for your time. And everyone go out and check out Here for the Truth podcast. It's taken off like a rocket. And we'll catch you around next time. See you, brother.
Take care, man.
Bye.
Babe, we're recording.
Hold on, I'm integrating. So, what'd you think?
I loved it. I loved the conversation. You guys explored so many topics. Lots of talk again about, the conditioning that we've received growing up and unconditioning, deconditioning, whatever you want to call it. And that's obviously very dear to my heart with the work that I do with Psych K. So yeah, loved it. Loved this conversation. I'm just starting to explore, different forms of body work and getting more into my body and expressing my emotions in a healthy way and releasing trapped emotions. So I've done, we always talk about this, and we're going to get our friend Steve later on to talk about emotion code. I just love emotion code. That works with dealing with, releasing trapped emotions. And
so good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things I was talking to you about before we posted this was, I feel like, and I mentioned it to Yerasimos, like I don't know where people can go to get the work done on them the way that he does, because he doesn't really do that anymore for one-on-one clients. I mean, you can always reach out and ask them, but there's this need for this kind of transformational work, and there's so many different ways to go about doing it. So whether it's Psych K or emotion code or doing
body work or breath work. I just did a one-on-one breath work session for the first time. That was incredible. Highly recommend it. So just explore things for yourself, see what works for you, what doesn't. You don't, like I said, you don't have to stick to one thing, and if things don't work for you, move on, leave it. You don't have to do it. And I mean, with the work that Yerasimos does, even though, he might not be working one-on-one, there's so much knowledge that he imparts and wisdom he imparts through his podcast, Here for the Truth. So definitely go and give that a listen. We'll put all of the links in the show notes for where you can get in touch with Yerasimos and Here for the Truth and what they're doing over there. So thanks for listening, guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy the episode, please like and follow wherever you're watching or listening to this, and share it with someone. If there's anyone you know that would really benefit from hearing this conversation, that might be interested in it, might bring value to their lives, please share it. We want to spread the word as much as possible. And again, if you'd like to support us, you can support us through our business natural art form. We'll have all of our links in the show notes as well. And we can't wait to see you guys again soon.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We will catch you guys next time.